Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 45. God, it's getting up there. Of the 40K Badcast. My name is Dan Boyd, and I am joined by the man that they were talking about in the song. What's that song called? Shit, I just had this in my head. God damn it. Okay, it's from Nazareth. Remember Nazareth?
Flirting with Disaster?
No,
is that one of theirs?
No. But it's a song where it's like, now you're messing with a son of a bitch. Like that's
yeah.
You know that song? What's that song called?
Of course. There's a fuckload of cowbell in that song too.
Yeah, there is. The song is fucking radical.
My favorite part is where he goes like, now you're messing with a son of a bitch. And then like right after now you're messing with a son of a bitch. Like I really like that. It's like, in case you didn't get it the first 4 times, here it is again, but a little lower.
All right. Well, that was going to be my joke, but I fucking brain farted on it for who right. You are. But you're the guy that Nazareth was talking about. You're Crumbles McSon of a bitch.
Yeah, no, it was recorded well before my birth, I'm pretty sure. But they knew.
All right, listeners, if you know what song we're talking about, please write in and tell us, because I don't feel like looking it up.
And I'm going to forget to look it up in the hour or so when we're done recording this.
Yeah. All right, well, let's stop fucking around and get into the aspects here. And Campbell, I've got some huge news on the hobby progress front.
Okay, what huge news you got to drop on me?
I am still working on the same goddamn group of intercessors. Yeah, so these I actually haven't had a ton of time for hobbying lately, and I am at the stage. I'm in the second highlights of these intercessors, and boy, oh boy, do these things take a while.
Mm-hmm.
And just getting through them, man. It's tough. Like I said last show, I'm eating my fucking vegetables here in the first couple of months of the year, trying to get a bunch of intercessors done so I can have double battalion with my Primaris Marines. So it's like, fuck, just got to get it done. Got to keep going. Put my hour a night in.
Yeah, no, I hear you. The problem is an hour a night does not go as far as it used to when you're painting large Marines compared to small Marines.
It's true, and I don't know. There may have been another life decision that happened that has put constraints on my hobby time recently.
Okay, before I talk about my hobby progress, now that you've subtly dropped the massive adult toy you bought, please tell us about the massive adult toy you bought.
I bought a motorcycle.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I did.
Ma'am Boyd is going to be so mad.
She's not going to know for a while, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You can see pictures of it on my Twitter if you want to look. It's nice. It's very, very handsome motorcycle.
I'm so glad you got it just in time for it to be like negative 50 degrees.
Oh my God.
Outside.
Yeah, I got it over the weekend, and it's like, I wrote it over the weekend. I wrote it to work on Monday, and then it was just like, here's a bunch of rain and bullshit. And it's going to get down to like 20 degrees tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm probably not going to ride it. But this weekend, it's supposed to be in like the 40s and 50s.
That's cool.
And my fiance has got like shit to do for a lot of it. So your boy might get some fucking seat time in.
The 40K Badcast, your premier podcast for East Coast-based weather and wargaming, in that order.
Yeah, so like I said, I didn't get a ton of hobby progress done in the intervening weeks since the last show, but I'm still working, man. They'll get there eventually.
Yeah, I get you.
What about you?
So I'm working on my own Primaris vegetables as well. Maybe not quite as bad, but I'm working on the Hellblasters from Dark Imperium. I did up all their guns to just be, the black and yellow hazard stripes running down them. I did like purple plasma coils, and I love so much about them. And now it's just like edge highlight, doing all the corners, going back and cleaning them all up. I don't know what's up, if it's just like my brushes or my paint consistency or what, but my highlights are looking like shit right now. So I'm going to have to spend a not insignificant amount of time cleaning all those highlights up. Like all the lines are wobbly and they're coming off in little corners and so on. I'm not really thrilled with a lot of how they're coming together, but I know, like, looking at the intercessors just over here on my desk, also because I don't have storage for these guys yet, I can see how good they'll look when they are done and all cleaned up and all put together.
Yeah,
and
I found Hellblasters to actually be kind of an annoyingly like long paint job for them because
the guns have so many corners and
guns.
lines.
It's the guns, yeah. Because you think about it like a bolter. A bolter doesn't take. I paint my bolters black, right? And so they don't take that long because they're not that big,
right?
But those big fucking plasma guns, there's so much to them. You've got different colors for the coils, and then there's just so many lines and details on the gun itself, and the gun is huge.
That's the thing, is it's tougher to work around because of how large the gun is, and also just because of the different textures you're kind of working with. It's not just one hard line going across the entire length of the gun. You've got these dips and valleys and curves and so on, which look awesome and have really taken to the hazard stripes I painted on them really well. Like, they fucking pop.
Yeah, and you're doing it on fucking hard mode, too, with your hazard stripes.
Well, here's the thing, too, is once I know that, then I've got to do the transfers, then I've got to do the weathering, and, like, I'm like, my backlog is too big. I know. I'll take longer to paint each miniature. Yeah, that'll show them. That'll show them. So they're coming out pretty good. Like, I'm a little frustrated with the highlights, but they're coming out pretty good. And I did a little bit more on the side. I painted like half a dozen models from the Fallout miniatures game. Just I got the starter set for Christmas.
Have you played that yet?
Oh, God, no. It looks very complicated.
And I never will.
Well, all right. So when I punched out the tokens for Necromunda, it's like one sheet. I'm like, okay, I know what these do, know what these do, know what these do. Done. Yeah. For this, it's like 4 sheets of cardboard tokens that are all double-sided and all have double meanings. And I can't, I glanced at the rule book really quick. I'm like, this is nicely laid out. Like, this looks pretty. The photos are nice. The art is nice. But this looks very complicated. But I basically I worked through the figures, and it was only, I went through like half of them. They're PVC, so they're not hard plastic. So the details are kind of muddy, and they come off as one single cast figure, so their poses are not quite as ambitious as you might expect from like a 40K figure. But I took the opportunity to do a lot of experimenting with like dry brushing and glazing and working with weathering powders and trying something a little bit different painting style wise, because they're not as detailed, so I don't need to spend as long on each guy, so I might as well do something to kind of make up for that lack of detail. Cool.
I have a question for you.
Shoot.
Are you and Anne planning to play Fallout board game together?
We were thinking about it, but because it is very, very complicated, I was thinking it might even be faster to come up with my own homebrew rule set, kind of based on either Necromunda or 40K or Age of Sigmar or whatever.
I was going to suggest that you can paint the miniatures and she learns how to play.
Oh, yeah, that way we can work on it together. She's going to be running like Pathfinder games at the library or something like that, cool. So she's got to figure those rules out too.
That's really cool.
But yeah, so that's what I've been up to hobby-wise.
Have you played any games?
I have played 2.
Ooh.
This weekend.
So real quick, listeners, we forgot to talk about games played last episode. I was listening through and editing last episode, and I was like, fuck. I had a game to talk about, and we just skipped right over the fucker.
Well, how about, let's do this chronological style. How about you go with yours from last time first?
Okay. Yeah, I just had one game against my buddy Scott. It was Blood Bowl, so not 40K, not Necromunda, Blood Bowl. And it was a learning game. It was his rats. It was his first game of actual tabletop Blood Bowl. He had been playing Blood Bowl 2 on the computer before this, but this is his first tabletop game. And learning game, I was giving him tips throughout the game and telling him, teaching him about tackle zones and who blocks first and all that stuff. And he beat me 2-0, which I was like,
learned him good.
I was like, okay, that's fine. It's a learning game. And ideally in a learning game, the person who's learning does win so that it kindles an interest in the game moving forward, and they, become a regular player. So I was pretty happy with the outcome.
Cool. I made a mistake then.
Uh-oh.
Because I played 2 games of Necromunda with my friend Cody, and these were learning games for him.
Uh-oh.
And he brought his Delac gang, I brought out my Goliaths, and we played on just the boards from the box games, so just the Zone Mortalis style games.
Yeah.
We did a 3x3 grid because he's like, oh, I was expecting to be in like the outside with buildings and stuff like that, and all my guys have long range weapons, and I'm just gonna get boned here. I'm like, okay, let's see what we can do about that. So I made sure there were some more open spaces, and it wasn't just straight fire lanes and straight maze stuff. It was kind of a nice mix of the two. And we just rolled up 1,000-point gangs, and the first game was just me just bulldozing him. Like, he would hit my guys and the shots would just bounce off, or I'd pass my cool check. There's that one skill, Unstoppable or whatever, where the guy just stands back up if he gets knocked down. used that, and I just rolled right through them, and it was not a good scene. But we, before it got too bad, we just called it. So we start a second game because, that's the beauty of Necromunda is, you can play a very quick game and re-rack. And the first, half hour or so is going really well for him. He's playing well, he's positioning well, he's knocking my guys down, he's pinning them down with a grav cannon or grav gun that's just knocking down my grenade launcher and bolter guy behind cover over and over again. And his snipers keep knocking my guys down. They're taking my guys out whenever they get in the open. My leader gets beat up real bad, charges a Juve of his with a pistol. I whiff every one of my power hammer attacks, and the Juve just kills him in one punch. And it is fucking awful. It's going really badly for me. And he's like, we can just, we can call this one too, And I said, I will roll with this and see where it goes, because I thought, maybe at least, can teach him more of the game. I can learn more of my own stuff again, because it's been a while since I played. And I managed to pull it out, and he doesn't do a single wound to my guys after that. All my guys stand up. They just, every time I shoot one of his guys, I roll a pair of skulls on the damage dice or whatever. And it is really brutal, and I felt really bad. And afterwards, he's just kind of I don't know what Delac does well, because we weren't really playing with tactics cards because he doesn't have those either yet. So you just had, a couple guys with sniper rifles, a couple guys with these pistols, hand flamers, and so on. And I've been consulting other people I know, and he's been looking up stuff too, which is trying to figure out how this gang works. And it seems like they really work well with flash grenades and smoke grenades and kind of war gear that operates around those sorts of tools.
Yeah, they're really sneaky. So their big thing is sneaking around and shooting. So they're good at shooting, and they are good at playing tricks on the opponent. And Goliath is a tough matchup for them because Goliaths are just naturally tough and resilient. And a lot of the Delac weapons are not super high strength weapons, but they're accurate weapons. Yeah. So it might be hard to take out Goliaths before they get close and start chewing your dudes up. But yeah, you have to play the misdirection game with Delac. You can't take a punch. You have to, sneak up and stab somebody in the back.
Yeah. And
so Cody, if you're listening, bud, keep playing. It's fun. It's a fun game. You'll figure it out. Just get out there and play, and maybe play not Goliaths.
I'm
Get
so glad
with it.
Yeah, I'm so glad I can have a crutch army in every single game I play.
Goliaths aren't even that good. I mean, they're good. They're because all of the gangs are good. Goliaths are tough, but they're slow, and their guns, they don't have great guns.
Not really, although bolters are really good.
Bolters are good, but bolters run out of ammo.
Yeah.
Combat shotguns are good, but combat shotguns are short range.
Yeah.
So it's both those guns are really good, and along with Orlocks, they do get access to combat shotguns at the start, which is great. But they're not great guns. They're not Van Saar.
That's true. Yeah, I don't have any BS2 in the Goliath gang.
No. Goliath, trust me, all of the gangs in Necromunda are good. And I remember when Cawdor came out, everybody thought Cawdor was what is this gang? They're terrible. But it turns out Cawdor is fucking awesome, because the amount of blaze tokens you can generate as a gang is insane with that gang.
I think every time he shot me with, he had a flame pistol, and every time he shot one of my guys with it, he just said 4, 5, 6, blaze it.
Oh, that's the new shit.
Which I'm very down with. 4, 5, 6, blaze it.
4, 5, 6, blaze it. That's the shit. That's good. That's an episode title right there. Yeah. All right, so let's move on to new stuff. And in the past couple of weeks, there have been really the only 40K centric stuff that's come out are Gene Stealer Cult. And it's not out for pre-order yet. I think it's coming up, maybe pre-ordering the first weekend of February, right?
Yeah, which is 2 days from now.
Right, it's January 30th as we're recording. So we're talking the new codex will be out a week and a half from now.
Right, it'll be out before we record next. So
right, but they've been previewing a lot of the rules and stuff on the community website. And man, if you want a flavorful army, this is it, dude. This is such a cool way to play 40K.
Yeah, it seems like it's kind of breaking a lot of the rules of 40K, but it's designed around breaking those rules, Yeah, being able to kind of deep strike the whole army essentially, because everyone rises up from the tunnels and so on.
Right. Well, because the whole thing about the Gene Stealer cults is they're insurrectionists.
Yeah.
And I was having a conversation with our friend Scott Horace Heresy, and he doesn't like Gene Stealer cults. He thinks the army is quote unquote stupid. And this is something that I just don't understand. Like, you've got the majority population of the galaxy of Warhammer 40,000 is the Imperium, is humans, right? Mm-hmm. And on all these hive worlds where it's crazily densely packed and whatever, like, you've got to imagine that like anarchy and crime and stuff is just everywhere throughout the Imperium. Yeah. And the Gene Stealer cults is the only army in the game that represents that anarchy.
Yeah, because like Chaos Cultists can touch on it, but they're not built around it, and they don't really have much to it. They're just kind of treated as rabble, which could be, you know, traitor guardsmen or cultists or what have you. I like that this is an army built around that, and although it is not an Imperial army, it does give you a much broader view of what the Imperium is like and what people in the Imperium look like and dress like and so on, which I think is very cool.
Yeah, I love the designs of these new miniatures. We've talked about them before. I think they released the Ridge Runner, which we haven't talked about, which looks like a Humvee.
It's very cool.
It's very, very cool. It's sort of like a lower than like a Torox, but wider. And it looks like it could be an actual off-road vehicle.
Yeah, well, it's just like the Goliath, but it looks a lot faster.
Yeah, and man, I just love the flavor with this army. I love the idea that they are, you know, the poison within the Imperium, the scout organisms of the Tyranid hive fleets, and they don't even know that they're serving the hive mind, the Gene Stealer cultists.
That's the irony of the entire army is predicated on.
It's
is that
the best part.
They think they're freedom fighters and they think they're working for the betterment of the people, but they're not. Right.
The four-armed emperor, or the beast that's behind the four-armed emperor, if it does eventually make it to whatever planet the cultists are working on, they'll all die. All of them. They'll be consumed as part of the biomass fueling the hive fleet.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
It's grimdark as hell. I love it.
So, Scott, I'm sorry, but I just don't know what the fuck you're talking about with this one.
Yeah, we've got basically this whole army coming out. So you got the drill, you got the dirt bikes, you got the quad, you got so many character models. Like, there's so many fucking character models.
Yes, and they started to explain what some of them do, which has been helpful because not all of them look obvious as to what they do. There's the DJ guy with his speakers. We know what he does. There's map table guy. We know what he does. But one of the assassin-looking guys that's standing still, what the fuck does that guy do?
Yeah, he's the bodyguard type character. Like, I think it's cool. I think it's interesting because you're seeing also an army that isn't from scratch per se, but you're getting an army that there was not that much for to begin with, and they're getting to flesh out so much. And it doesn't feel like anything they're adding is superfluous. Like, it's not like, you know, like we talked about before, where it's like, what else do you add to Space Marines without redoing the whole range? Like, you don't have the equivalent of Space Marine Centurions in this army. Right, like, everything feels like a natural sort of extension of it.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that I'm excited for Gene Stealer cult players is that four-wheeler they can get, the ATV they can get, which I think is called a Wolf Quad, which is a very stupid name for what is a cool model. The Wolf Quad, it can have a 12-inch heavy flamer.
Yeah, that's neat.
Which is really awesome.
Yeah, and the biker sniper can give a bonus to all the bikes around them and all stuff. It's cool. I like that you can build an army around that, kind of like a really fragile Speed Freaks army.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to see what those players come up with, our friendly GSC players. And I personally would love to play a game against Gene Stealer cults. I don't know anyone who plays Gene Stealer cults, but I think that would be a cool way to while away an afternoon or an evening against an army that operates completely differently from any other army.
I mean, I hope to see them at Adepticon. I hope to see them at Nova. I hope to see them more in my local meta because it is a very cool army with some gorgeous models and some very cool rules and lore, and I just haven't gotten to play against them. And I don't really have any interest in playing them myself, but I'm very happy to see more of them on the table. But there is one more model that was, if not released, at least teased, which was the Black Library event Commissar Severina Rain, she's the star of a series of novellas and short stories, and I think soon some actual novels.
I think a novel, the first actual novel of for her is coming out soon, Yeah,
and I think, first of all, I think the model looks really cool. Like, she's got a great pose, got a great face. Like, I love the cuirass, like the armored chest plate and the big hat and the cool sword, and is a beautiful character model. And it made a lot of people with really bad opinions mad.
Yeah, so the model is for Severina Rex, who, if you can't
Severina
Rain, sorry, if you can't tell by her name, is a female model, right? A woman commissar. And a lot of terrible people on the internet got mad because she wasn't dressed sexily enough.
Well, she didn't present obviously female enough, because I guess she didn't look like the old metal commissar, female commissar model with the
the corset and the boobs popping out.
God,
and
that model's so bad.
Yeah.
I love retro models, and that old one's awful.
No, it's terrible.
Yeah, and I know some people were complaining about that and all that stuff. And it's just kind of like, if you ever see a woman in uniform, they don't look all that different than the dude in uniform. Like, she just has a really big hat, so you can't really have the long haircut. And she's got like this actual protective breastplate instead of silly literal breastplate. The only complaint I really saw where I've kind of got any sort of like, I get where you're coming from, was, this is cool, but where's Kane? Where's Gaunt? Where's like models based on some of the older characters, like the longer standing Black Library characters who people want to see? Because like, I see this model, I think it's a cool model, but I honestly don't know who this person really is, because I haven't read any stories about her. And I'd love it if there was, a new model for Caiaphas Cain and Jurgen or something like that.
I don't know, man. I don't think this is like a cogent point that people are putting forth. Like, oh, this is the whole like the Orktober truthers who look at the Gene Stealer Cult's release and be like, oh, we only got 6 new buggies, we only got 6 brand new models, and these guys got like 10. So you didn't get the one fucking, oh God, man, I don't know.
Where were the Primeworks I was promised?
I don't know, dude. Like, I know that like people want their wishes to be fulfilled, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's totally fine for someone to want something and get Games Workshop to build what they want or sell what they want. But like, when they release a new character for any army, and then the first thing people complain about is, why didn't you do it for this old character?
Yeah.
I don't get it. It's like it's not appreciative. It's not gracious. And I'm not saying that you should go out there and thank Games Workshop for every release that they do, but like just getting out there and immediately complaining about characters that have no real relevance towards the like story. Well, that's not true. They are relevant because there's been a fuck ton of books sold for both of these guys.
Yeah.
But it just seems so like petty and shitty to come out and immediately start complaining about something that doesn't exist and probably will never exist. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong there. It's
maybe that's it's like entitled. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's very similar to what I think when it comes to like the fighting game community, that bastion of tolerance and understanding the fighting game community, where it's like, oh no, Street Fighter 35 or whatever, which is actually a Street Fighter 2 Ultra Mega Hyper Fighting Edition, doesn't have this one guy I like to play as in it. Why not? Why'd they not put in my guy and they brought in 3 more or whatever? And people get kind of pissed about that sort of thing. It reminds you that I know it's not a one-to-one comparison. I don't know. It's just,
I don't know.
I understand.
It just rubs me the wrong
frustration.
Way. When something new comes out and people are immediately complaining about how it's not the one thing that they wanted. It's just like shitty behavior.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I honestly, like when like the Gene Store Cult stuff, like, yeah, it's not the army I want, but I can go, that's cool, and move on.
Well,
those new models coming out does not mean that cool models that I want to add to an army won't come out.
I don't know, listeners, if you think I'm wrong about this and you want to talk to me about it, please get at me. Contact at 40kbadcast.com or at Twitter at DB_sleazy. Because I want to hear what you have to say about it. Because I honestly don't get this mindset. You know, like when they're bringing out new Primaris, I'm not like, where are my great coat guardsmen? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can only yell that to the heavens for so many years.
I dread them releasing plastic guardsmen that I actually want to own. I dread it so much.
I had the thought that they were going to release plastic guardsmen, like plastic Valhallans, the moment I put the brush down on my last metal Valhallan, and that's why I can't finish painting them ever. Oh. That's why I still have a sack of like 40 of them, because if I paint them, I'm going to need to get a bunch of plastic ones because they'll come out the next day.
Just let me fucking catch up, Games Workshop, please. Just let me personally. That's what I want. I don't want new models. I want fewer models. All right, let's move on. Let's move on from this terrible rant, and we're gonna answer a question here in our segment called "We Make the Call." Now, this one is from our email account. It's from Jeremy R. And I like this question because I have a super specific answer for it.
Okay,
which and I want to hear what you have to say about it too. But I like this one, and it goes a little like this. Hi, Dan, Man, and Robin. Might be too simple of a question for the segment, but how do you guys handle bit storage? Any tips on keeping all sorts of disparate stuff organized? Jeremy, yes. I have the exact product for you, bud. It is called the Iris 16 case 4-inch by 6-inch photo and craft storage carrier, and it's from the Container Store. If you go onto the Container Store's website and you search for Iris 16, 1-6, you will find exactly what I'm talking about. This thing is great. It's these little plastic boxes that are like photograph sized, 4x6 photograph size.
Yeah.
And in the box, it comes with 16 of them. So you can like label. What I have them like labeled by like one of them's like extra Lehman Russ parts. One of them's extra Space Marine parts. One of them's extra Primaris Space Marine parts. And like it's all labeled by what sprues they came off of.
Oh, you actually label them too.
Yeah. So it's really, really easy to keep track of stuff. And if I have to go in there looking for Grey Knight pieces to fix an Iron Halo on a fucking captain after a Adepticon, then I know exactly which box I'm going to look through.
All right.
So it's not one big bits box. It's a series of smaller bits boxes that fit into a big bits box.
A bits box, if you will. So actually, last episode, I think I talked about this one from Michaels I have, which is always out of stock everywhere.
Well, guess what? The one at the Container Store, the one I'm talking about, you can buy it right now on the fucking internet. It's like $22.
Yeah, but I'm not about to go change up my system because I already have 4 of these fucking things, and I don't want to throw
I'm talking to Jeremy.
Okay, well, this one was just an adjustable storage box by Bead Landing. It's just a box for beads, and Russ Peterson on Twitter asked me about it. And yeah, I've just got like 4 of those in a stack, and what I'll do is I'll clip the bits off a sprue, and I'll be like, okay, this box is Marines, and bolters go here, heads go here, torsos go here, backpacks go here, or whatever, and then I start to overcrowd them, and now it's just all Empire bits go here, all Guard bits go here, because I used to keep all my shit on like in their boxes on their sprues, which meant I'd have like a massive frame that has like one purity seal on the top left, and that's fucking it. But I might need it. So yeah, that like part of that purge of shit I did a few weeks ago involved just clipping all those things off. And I don't have enough bead boxes for them. So right now there's like an old like Chimera box, an old Land Raider box just filled to the brim with just offcuts and random bits.
Yeah. You know what you need?
What?
You need the Iris 16.
16 photo storage solution from the Container Store.
Photo and craft storage carrier is what you need. I'm going to buy you one.
I already have 4 of these fucking things.
I'm going to send it to your house. I'm going to buy it for you. Okay. Well, Jeremy, I hope that helps you out. I like the question because it's a specifically answered question. All right, let's move on to our first segment of the show, which I have called Babby's First Tournament. We're talking about tournaments. We're not talking about big tournaments. We're talking about local tournaments, and specifically for people who haven't gone to a local tournament yet but are thinking about it.
Right. So these are like your game store tournaments or your small sub 50 person local independent events.
Right. And we've been to those. I think I've only been to like 2 or 3. I think you've been to more than I do. Because outside of a con, like I kind of don't like the tournament thing. Like on like a weekend where it's just like, all right, show up at 10 a.m. and leave at 9 p.m. and you're just standing around playing Warhammer and you don't know a whole lot of people there. You're not drinking. It's just sort of like, I don't know. I've done it a couple times and I'm not a huge fan of it. This is going great already. I'm talking down how I don't like tournaments too much, but just because I don't want to spend, 11 to 12 hours playing Warhammer on a day doesn't mean that you don't want to spend. And there are good things about going to a tournament. And I think that if you're a Warhammer player and you have an army, painted or not, that you want to go out and get some games in, going to a tournament is a great idea, especially if you don't know a whole lot of the people you're in your area.
Also, especially if you want to go to a Nova or Adepticon or whatever, and you want to see if you can handle playing like 3 games of 40K in a day and without your brain leaking out your ears.
That's actually a very good point.
Yeah, like it's good practice, not just competitively, but just like figuring out, like, because, I've known a lot of people who they peace out after like an hour and a half of a game. Like after that, they're just kind of, they can't pay attention to it anymore. And, if you go to Nova or Adepticon and that's the kind of, and that you're a person who might only last 2 hours or so after your first game, you're just kind of like done for the day and you have 2 more games to play, that sucks. But if it's just a local tournament or whatever, like the buy-in might be $20 at most.
Yeah. And,
so it's a better way to find that out.
At local tournaments, people leave after the first or second round all the time.
Very often.
Oh, got to get out of here. Sorry, guys. And it's like, all right, cool. Somebody else will get to play your opponent or whatever. It's not a big deal. So let's quickly talk about our first tournaments, our first 40K tournaments. And I vaguely remember mine because mine happened in 2014.
All right.
It was my first one. And it was a Get Ready for Nova tournament in 2014, right before the Nova Open of 2014. And I brought my Mechanized Guard, and this is 7th edition, so Mechanized Guard was near the top of the peak meta at this point. And I had a pretty good time. This is back when I didn't know a whole lot of people in the hobby anymore. And I was in Northern Virginia, trying to make friends in the hobby and trying to get to know people. This was at the Huzzah Hobbies store in Sterling, Virginia. And it was a fun time. I, hung out with some dudes that I still know and hang out with today. I played 3 games. I think this is getting in the fucking Wayback Machine here, but I think the first game was like a very close loss.
Yeah.
The second game I do remember singularly because it sucked.
Oh.
I won, but it was a guy who was playing an army of Grey Knights and Demons.
Cool.
Who was
Fluffy.
allied. Yeah.
Yeah, that's extremely cool. 7th edition was perfect.
Yeah, and like none of his stuff was painted, and he was extremely slovenly in his appearance, and it was just an extremely boring and stupid game where like he just took the longest fucking turns also, and it was bad. It was a bad game, and I won. Like halfway through the game, I realized like this guy's misplaying everything. He's not using any of his shit, and he's also not killing any of my shit, and I'm still on all the objectives. And then, but it was just like waiting for him to fuck his turns up and finish, and like it sucked. I don't remember his name. I kind of remember what he looks like, but if I haven't seen him since then, so I guess he doesn't really play in the area anymore. But I would, if I did see him at a thing, I would avoid him 100%.
That's rough. I am sorry about that experience.
Yeah, and then the third game, if I remember correctly, was another fun game. I think it was a loss, but it was like one of those fun losses where it's things are happening the whole game, and I wasn't completely out of it. But yeah, so my first tournament experience in a nutshell, I would like, and I've done it again since, but it was definitely like you need to. Like, my takeaways from it were like, my army sucks, which was fine. I didn't make it to necessarily win me a ton of games. Mechanized Guard at this point in 7th edition was Garbo, and would remain Garbo until the present day. I think I had constructed this list originally in like 5th edition. I was just like working from a template and hadn't played in years, and was just like, I'll just keep going with what I'm doing. And when I finished the army, it was like, oh, bad. My takeaways from it were like, if I'm going to go to a tournament with this army, I'm not going to win anything. I'm gonna meet people and I'm gonna actually get to play. And at this point in my life, I didn't have a lot of people to play 40K with, so I had to go out and do these events to do it. Now I can, get games reliably with my friends just about every weekend if I wanted to, which is great that I don't have to go play strangers. Because sometimes you get a shitty, slovenly asshole who takes forever and just sucks the fun out of the game.
Yeah, but sometimes you meet friends. Like, I think that's the thing, is you don't have to play strangers anymore, but, because you already have a group of friends you'd rather play with, but it's a die roll, and that die roll can be good sometimes. Like...
No, totally. Totally. I remember, I went to events in Pennsylvania with the guys I met at Nova. Yeah. And played a tournament there and met some dudes and hung out with some people and had a great time. I've gone back to Huzzah Hobbies and had more events there, and same thing, met some people, had a great time. Like, it's tournaments can be a ton of fun. Yeah. The thing that usually steers me away from them, at least in my area, is that if I go, I know I'm probably not going to win a whole lot of games because in the Northern Virginia area, like, it's heavily competitive focused. Yeah. For all the armies around here, and it's like meta hammer a lot of the times.
Yeah. Okay. I can understand why that would also really put you off.
Yeah. And then again, like, I like to have a game. I generally play in the mornings on the weekends. Like, I'll try to go early so I can have a game and then go get lunch with my opponent or something. And then I have like the whole evening and whatever to hang out. Whereas if I'm going to go for a tournament day, it's all day into the night, like after dinner time. And it just was like, it's a lot, man, especially if it's like part of a weekend and you're trying to get shit done. And then if you have stuff to do on the next day, on the Sunday or whatever, like you're slammed.
Yeah. No, I get you. I really do. Like, budgeting your time for something, for an all day thing, especially when you have like other people relying on you, whether that's friends, family, loved ones, etc., does make that even more difficult. But you can still make it work. So like, I hit up local tournaments fairly regularly. Like, I go to Alpha Omega in Quincy, or, I might go to Hobby Bunker for something, and I'll do small events, small tournaments and so on. They're usually when they advertise as like a friendly or, non-competitive sort of tournament, then that's kind of more my thing. Once the words GT are thrown out there or whatever, I'm like, nope, hands up, I'm out. But my first tournament was at Card Empire in Torrington, Connecticut, and this must have been like 2009. I think I'd just been in college for a little bit, and I went back to the country to try to whip some bumpkins at Warhammer 40,000.
What the fuck accent is that? I went back to the country to whip some bums. Is that your attempt at a Southern accent?
I do declare, Daniel.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I thought I was kind of like
fucking Yankee.
I know, I'm a total piece of shit. Yeah, I went down south from Massachusetts to Connecticut. But yeah, so I brought my Imperial Guard. So this was 5th edition. So Guard were extremely good. I was not like full mech vets or anything super spammy or anything, but just kind of a not net listy but still effective Guard army. And I played 3 games also, which is kind of the typical format you'll see. And my first game was against a beautifully painted Marine army with the least thought out army list I've ever seen. It was like 5 squads of scouts, a 10-man squad of Vanguard veterans with lightning claws, Sicarius walking behind the Rhino with those guys in it, and a Devastator squad with one of each heavy weapon. And I don't know if you recall, but Sicarius buffed tactical Marines, and there were no tactical Marines in the army. So I just wiped the floor with him. I lost like 10 guardsmen, and afterwards I was like, hey, sorry about that. Your army's really cool though, let's talk strategy. And we had a nice conversation about painting and about strategy and list building, all that stuff, and that was cool. My second game was against Necrons, and this was Necrons were extremely bad before they got the redo, and they still had the phase out rule.
Oh yeah.
And I phased them out very quickly, and again, it was like, nice army, man, sorry it's back in the case. And he was a really nice guy, and he was a little sad because he was kind of coming to terms with the fact his army wasn't very good. But little did he know, in like a year it would be very good. And then the last game was actually against like a very much more meta chasing Imperial Guard army, and the game was awesome. And it came down to the last die roll, and he just eked out a victory over by 1 point or whatever, and it was a great time. And it was kind of my first taste of competitive 40k as it was, because before that I'd only ever read about it, and even still it was not your awful net list. It was not like Ard Boys back in the day where it was just like unpainted army versus unpainted army, net list versus net list, Tinker Toys glued to an orc vehicle to be a def roll because def rolls are good this week, like that sort of shit. And it was just really nice, and that kind of opened me up to be like, oh, well, maybe I can play more local tournaments and meet more people. And as like a socially awkward 19-year-old, it's really good to kind of have an avenue to meet strangers. And that doesn't feel like some creepy, backroom meeting you set up on the internet. You're already there for a reason. So let's talk. And I just kept going to a few local tournaments here and there until I kind of got more comfortable meeting people and talking to strangers about this silly hobby. And it was a jumping off point for me. And when I go into these sorts of events now, it's kind of like a jumping back in point for me because it lets me see what my local community is like. And, I see a lot of familiar faces who I've been seeing at, game stores, small events over time, or like have even seen over at Nova and so on, which is extremely cool.
Yeah. So I love the imagery in my head of 19-year-old Campbell going down to Connecticut to kick some ass in a Warhammer 40,000 tournament. You roll up and this first guy's got some fucknut Space Marine army and you're like, this fucking asshole right here. And you roll his shit. You stomp him. And in my head, 19-year-old Campbell has long hair and you're wearing like a cut off jean vest.
Oh, I wish.
Like, how accurate am I right now?
You're halfway there. I had long hair and I had a shitty beard, but I did not have the confidence to rock a battle vest.
So, you're out there, you got like a Judas Priest shirt on, and you come out there and you're all smug and shit, and you're like, fuck yeah, I just kicked your ass. And then you come a guy with fucking Necrons comes out, and you phase him out, turn 2, and you're like, fuck yeah, motherfucker, what's up, Valhallans? And then third game, you play whatever. But, oh, God, I love that imagery in my head of like badass 19-year-old Campbell.
Yeah, rolling up to Card Empire and my dad's Dodge Intrepid, yeah.
Yeah, it's so, again, I want to stress that you should give tournaments a shot.
Yeah, and like when you're there, just understand that, it's going to be a reflection of your local meta one way or another. And that might be a case like yours where it is like very competitive, or it might be like mine where you've got kind of like, from my past experience, it's been like, I'll usually have like one game against someone who's totally new to the hobby and is just learning and just getting into it. One game against someone who's very hobby focused, and one game against someone who's like, hey, look at this list I downloaded. Also, all these guys I spray painted white are Blood Angels. You're screwed. Like, and their army has 3 recast Leviathans in it or whatever. It is a crapshoot, but it's people.
just like the rest of the world is a crapshoot.
Just like the rest of the world. And the advice I typically give for any sort of bigger event stands true here, which is like, play quickly if you can, because time is often tight. Come expecting to play a few games. Don't expect to actually win anything, and see it as a way to meet new people. Hydrate, because you're going to be out there. You're going to be on your feet. Wear deodorant, because you're going to be in a room full of other smelly nerds. And just be like, chill, be friendly, and give your opponents the benefit of the doubt. Most people are just there to play and hang out and hopefully get some games in. And a lot of people also, after they lose their first game, I know you said a lot will leave, but a lot of time they'll just be like, all right, cool, the stakes are off. I'm just here to hang out now.
Oh, no, I love losing the first game in a tournament.
Yeah, the pressure's off.
That's like anything. That's like one of my strongest tournament advice, points of advice, is if you're playing in a GT or something, throw the first game. Just fuck it up. Just purposely fuck it up. Get out of the running for winning, and then you'll have fun. Now, there are people, of course, like Scott, our friend who we were talking about earlier. He's extremely competitive minded, and he wants to win all of his games, and he brings just absolutely brutal lists to tournaments. And like, that's where his fun is. And, and if you, listener, are thinking of getting into the tournament because, hey, you kind of like it when things get a little sweaty, at the game table. You kind of like it when it's crunchy. You can get in there, man. It might be that sort of competitive mindset is what you're after. And if you don't go to any tournaments, you're not going to figure that out.
But I will say, if you really do want a leg up on the competition at a tournament, number one, paint your shit. Like, even if it's only painted okay, if there's any soft scoring or whatever, which is, it's there about half the time, you'll get a big bump for just being painted. And also, you should paint your stuff anyway, because painting's great. And the game looks way better when everything's painted.
And if you lose to an unpainted army, you can be smug about it. At least my shit's
exactly.
painted.
Yeah, while you were playing games, I studied the brush.
So let's finish up with and talk about, just like, break it down real quick. Why should you go to a local tournament?
Yeah.
First one, meet people. Meet other players, potentially new friends. You're not going to make new friends in the hobby if you don't go out and fucking meet them. Exactly. 2, get good at 40K.
Yeah, if that's what you want to do, whether that's actually getting like capital G, get good at 40K, or you just want to kind of get a better grasp of the rules in your army, it's a very good way to do it because you're basically having a cram session. Yeah. And then 3rd, get to know your local meta. How do the players around you play? My local meta is fucked up and super competitive. So I don't go to a lot of tournaments because it's not all that much fun. Campbell's local meta is big into narrative games and fully painted armies. And I am somewhat jealous, but I'm not jealous of the fucking climate of Boston, so I'm not moving up there. But what is your town? What is your city like? Find out. Yeah. Fucking do it, man. Yeah, because it's very easy to end up in a bubble online of like the most vocal competitive players saying the game is like this. And that might be true for them. That a lot of them might not actually play. They might just build lists and that's all they do. So the only way to actually find that out for yourself is to go out and play with people. Right. All right, let's move on to our next segment, which, interestingly enough, is an interview. Yes, speaking of narrative, we are having an interview with an extremely narrative friend of ours, a gifted storyteller, if you will. Yes, you may have heard from him already on the Badcast. He is one of the authors of the epic saga, Fast Times at Terrah High. Yeah, Terrah High. His name is Rob. He also goes by the Chirurgeon online, and we are talking to him about the campaign he's running in 2019. Okay, gang, we are here with our friend Rob Jones, a.k.a. the Chirurgeon, who listeners who've been listening for a while may recognize his internet name. He is the principal author of Fast Times at Terrah High. And he is cool enough to invite us to his campaign this year, the Estratus campaign, and we wanted to talk to him a little bit about himself and the campaign. Rob, how you doing?
Doing well, Dan. Thanks. It's good to be here.
Well, it's great to have you. This is a situation that is somewhat uncommon for the Badcast recording, where we are here late at night. We're burning the midnight oil here at Badcast HQ. Let's say it might be the midnight oil if you're in the Midwest. It's the 10 p.m. oil for us right now. I think Midwest are still watching primetime TV. Oh, fuck, you're right. Oh, you don't know how time zones work. I'm bad at math. I'm bad at spelling. I'm bad at reading. And I'm good at anime. Let's keep going. Oh, no. All right, Rob. Well, thanks for being here. Let's get to let's talk about you for a little bit. So you are, for me personally, one of my favorite hobbyists going back quite a while. On the Something Awful forums, you would post these, by at least Something Awful standards, lavish battle reports and campaign reports for the stuff that you were doing years ago, and I always got a big kick out of those.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad to know that they had readers, I guess. I always just assumed that people would scroll past them because they'd get no responses.
Well, sometimes it's hard to respond to something that cool other than, hey, that's cool. I mean, I think that's the sort of thing that the like button was kind of invented for as far as 21st century online media goes. Yeah, it was always super cool and I loved reading them, but there really wasn't much more I could say aside from nice reply.
Yeah, they were never really tactically involved as oh yeah, we did this and it was a fun game. And they were never so serious that you'd get real tactical information out of them for a tournament. But at the same time, it was always really disheartening to do a battle report and have all the details and then no one responds. And then the next post is hey guys, here's this terrible list I made. Let's talk about that for 20 pages.
I mean, you're complaining about just every internet forum at this point.
Let's say this is as old and applicable as time.
There's nothing to argue about in your really nicely crafted battle reports. But one of the things I liked so much about them is that at least you, maybe not your friends, but you always had nicely and fully painted armies on display. And as somebody who really values that part of the hobby, it was really cool to see in someone else too.
Oh, thanks. I mean, I'm no like Crampon McTampon or anything, but
Crampon's used for climbing, I'll have you know. That is a respectable name.
Got him.
Right. I'm sorry. Of the New England.
And please, it's McTampon.
I've always had like a play with only painted mentality, and so that has, I think, in a lot of ways, driven me to paint ridiculous amounts of stuff. And
yeah,
I always I just love playing with I love going and seeing tables where everything's painted. So that's always been like a goal of mine.
Yeah.
So what do you think kind of instilled that sort of ethos in you when you started with this hobby?
Merciless dunking from my friends in the hobby.
The most productive and helpful and constructive and supportive way to help your friends out is by dunking on them relentlessly.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So when I started playing back in I want to say 96, my family, we moved to Italy when I was in the 8th grade. My dad was a chemist and his company got bought by an Italian company. They moved us to this town in northern Italy called Ferrara. And I lived there. We lived there for 2 years, and we lived right down the street from a game shop. Mm-hmm. I used to play a lot of Magic at the time, and my parents wanted me to learn Italian because I had to go to Italian school. And so they picked the place that we lived partly because it was close to that store, because they knew I'd be down there all the time. And I was down there every day playing games, and reading comics and hanging out. And all the older kids, who were just ridiculously cool by, 8th grade Rob standards. And also for some reason in Europe, it is less embarrassing to be into some of this nerd stuff, or at least was at the time, than it would be comparatively in America. So that's the excuse I'm going with for why they seemed cool.
It's okay to just be like, hey, I was in 8th grade. I didn't know what cool was.
I still don't.
No, I definitely had an idea because I've seen movies and TV shows, and I know that wasn't where I was at in my life.
You saw Triple X with Vin Diesel.
Exactly. I haven't personally saved the president from terrorists, but I can imagine a situation where someone would. And so obviously I can see where I need to get to one day and the number of tattoos that I would need for that. Yeah. So but all the older kids played Warhammer, and I wasn't really playing Warhammer, but I had done a lot of model building with my dad. Mm-hmm. Mostly spaceships and stuff. And I had played a lot of Hero Quest, and I think this is probably a common denominator for a lot of kids who got into Warhammer. But yeah, I'd played a lot of Hero. Well, okay, hold on. That's the wrong word. I hadn't played a lot of Hero Quest. I think I've played in my life one game of Hero Quest, but I owned a copy of Hero Quest, and I had painted all of my Hero Quest models. And the Chaos Warrior, I always thought, and the Gargoyle were the coolest shit. Mm-hmm. So when I started, when I was living in Italy and I was hanging out with these guys, a lot of them were playing Warhammer, and that was right when the Chaos Space Marine 2nd edition Codex came out.
Yeah.
And it was the Chaos Marines all look like the Hero Quest Chaos Warrior because they're all Citadel models.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, this is cool. And I immediately fell in love. And that was my first love. And my wife isn't here to hear me say that, which is great. But yeah, I was hooked. I bought the Codex. I saved up and I bought the metal fucking, the Khorne Berserker on the Juggernaut that made it into one game because he was trash.
Yeah, that big old brass donkey.
Yep. Oh yeah. And that thing weighed 4 pounds. It was terrible. But yeah, I started playing, and, I played with a bunch of guys who were really good painters. But they all just, I was not a good painter, and they all just dunked on me merciless all the time. I would paint stuff, and I'd come in, I'd be like, yeah, check out this thing I painted. They'd be like, that looks like trash. And so that was, was always
still back in Italy?
Yeah. Oh yeah. This was still in Italy. I played in Italy a lot until, we moved. That was I was there 8th and 9th grade, and then we moved back to the States. And then I eventually started playing again with some of my friends in the States, later on. But yeah, this was still in Italy. People were my friends would just be like, that looks like shit. And then they'd give me pointers and advice, and it'd be helpful. But for the most part, there was a lot of dunking.
Yeah, as far as I know, the hobby in Italy, is way deeper into actually painting and high quality painting than it is in the States.
Yeah, because if you look at like the old heavy metal, or not heavy metal, Golden Demon entries from like each year, especially through like the 90s and early 2000s, you'd see like, okay, America, all right, primary colors, some green bases, fine. Britain, same thing. Germany, okay. And then you see Italy and it's just Renaissance paintings like floor to ceiling.
I mean, that's where they made it, right?
Yeah, I mean, none of the dudes I played with were even that good. My models were just legit trash for a long time.
The term is Il Garbaggio, please.
Sorry.
You mentioned the Chaos Marines from second edition, and you said that they're your first love. Is that still your main army?
Yes. So I have probably around 20 to 25,000 points of Chaos Space Marines painted.
Good Lord.
Woof.
I have another probably 20,000 in my backlog that are unpainted.
Now that sounds about right.
Yeah, now it's relatable.
Yeah. I've got an army of Death Watch that are almost done, and I've got an army of White Panthers Space Marines that I started back in middle school, back when I was living in Italy, and have kind of over the years fleshed out a little bit. But neither of my Space Marine armies have any Primaris, and I don't know if I'm going to add any at any point. Like, I have some in my backlog, but I just can't bring myself to add them to them. But yeah, when they did the Eye of Terror campaign back in 2000, I was really into. I had just started doing. I started with Night Lords, and then I started doing an Iron Warriors army because I did the Index Astartes articles, and then they came out with the Eye of Terror campaign, and I really liked the idea of doing every one of the Chaos Legions as like a big 13th Black Crusade army. Mm-hmm. And I started working on that project, and I'll finish up sometime in 2064.
Sounds about right.
I'm so glad you could start this project during your 8th of life crisis, and you can finish it sometime after your midlife crisis.
Oh yeah, sometime after the seas have risen to the point where they've engulfed the entire state that I live in, I'll finally finish the last guy in the 9th Legion. But yeah, right now I've got Night Lords, Iron Warriors, Black Legion, Thousand Sons, Death Guard, and World Eaters done, and I've been working on Alpha Legion and Word Bearers.
I don't hear cool. Emperor's Children in there.
No, because I haven't. I have a bunch of models for them. I just haven't worked on them yet. I have a couple of new Noise Marines, and they're really cool. But I keep suspecting that there's going to be new Emperor's Children at some point, and I don't want to get halfway, because I had a bunch of older Death Guard, and now I'm just giving them away because the new Death Guard just looks so much better.
Yeah,
they're not tiny.
Do you think that there's going to be new Berserkers or new Noise Marines first?
Probably Noise Marines, but only because it seems like they're not going to do corn stuff for a while. But I don't know. I'm probably wrong about that.
I mean, this is all pure speculation.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. People listen to this. Someone's going to hear this and be like, that's what Rob thinks? Fuck that guy.
Time to sculpt more Tau.
All right. So you mentioned taking part in the Eye of Terror campaign back in the day. And I actually remember when that was happening too, though I don't think I was playing 40K at the time when I was in the hobby at that point. You're not just participating in campaigns run by Games Workshop. You've been running your own campaigns.
Yeah, I started running a campaign. So I've run, really the Astratus campaign is the third campaign that I've run in the last few years. I started running one back in 2013, just after I moved to New York. I was looking for a good way to keep in touch with my friends, Animal, Greg, and John, who they play Dark Angels and Space Wolves. And I thought it would be cool to do a regular campaign that would give me an excuse to go down and visit them on the reg or have them come up, so that we could play more games. And so we started playing a campaign that lasted we got some more friends involved and started playing a campaign, with about 6 or 7 players that was map based. And that lasted about 7 or 8 months, and we finally ended it with a big game of Apocalypse.
So would you say this is actually a successfully finished campaign?
Yeah, they both had, both of the ones before this were, I think. The last one, so that was that ran probably 2013, 2014. And then in 2016, I started doing another campaign that with 3 friends, we were doing the Planetary Onslaught campaign, where you do
that was
planet
the Hex
Strike,
tiles, right?
No, this is the one where it's like more like a linear narrative campaign where they did the book in 7th edition that had like Planet Strike and Stronghold Assault to Death. Yeah. So we started doing that, and that was like a 2-on-2. There were 4 of us doing that, and that was fun. And we did the first bit with Planet Strike, and then a bunch of our friends were like, hey, we'd like to get in on that. And then it went from 4 people to like 10 people, which was really cool. And we did a lot of games of that. And that ended last October. We did a big Apocalypse game at Pete's place, which was a lot of fun. So 2 successful campaigns that finished in the bag. They both ended with Apocalypse games featuring Tyranids.
Well, that seems like a good omen, at least, for the Astratus campaign. Let's get philosophical for a moment, because in the most recent Voxcast, the official 40K podcast, while we are an unofficial and a terrible 40K podcast, the fellow that was on there mentioned the question, what are campaigns for? And I thought that was a really interesting question. And I wanted to ask you, Rob, what you thought.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think really campaigns have 2 purposes, right? The first is to just play more games. You're really looking for an excuse to play more games of 40K or whatever game system and spend more time hanging out with your friends. And then the second one is to kind of give some meaning to the games so that you have a reason to be trying to win them. I think that you don't really have a problem doing that when you play competitively. But I think that when you're playing casually, for me anyway, I've always felt that like I really enjoy having more of a backstory or a way of thinking like, oh, this game will connect to some other to another game or be part of some larger story that we're telling. And so, both of those together, I think that those are really the two reasons you play campaigns.
Well, that's interesting that you mentioned more casual play, because at Nova last year, I guess, technically it is last year. Yeah. You've been playing narrative games and narrative campaigns for a long time, but you decided to do the grand tournament, the GT. And I was actually kind of surprised when you had mentioned that was what you're going to do, knowing how at least the style at which you've played your games and posted your battle reports and everything. And my question is, like, what brought you to I don't know, flip sides and go competitive for at least a little bit?
Oh, I didn't get into the narrative campaign. No, it was already full by the time I was trying to register. But
no.
I mean, part of it too is like I used to play tournaments back in the day when I was in high school. I like competitive play just fine. It always drives me nuts when people talk about like win at all cost players. Just because like I played the GT and everyone I played against was like just super gracious and fun to play against. And great guys. I still keep in touch with a couple of them. And especially day one, I got my ass beat merciless, by just some ridiculous lists. And I like toward the end of the day, I got a little bit salty, but even then, like some of the guys I were playing with were like super cool about it. So I ended up having a pretty good time doing that. And I wanted to go down and participate and see that and, kind of get a feel for it. I do like playing competitively. I just don't do it very often. Most of the games I play, are local games that I play with my group of friends and Pete's group of friends. And so those are pretty casual, but I find they get more heated than they can sometimes get more heated than a lot of tournament games.
Yeah, you mentioned Peter, and it's the same Peter we interviewed fairly recently about converting and all that stuff. And he's about as far from competitive gaming as you can really get.
Oh, absolutely. The dude will sandbag games to try and get like a 500 or a 1-to-1 KD ratio.
So here's a question for you, Rob. Are there any like Touchstone, Games Workshop, or Black Library products or books or novels or whatever that really influenced your love of campaign building and narrative gaming?
Yeah, I saw this one, and I wish I could say that there were, but I didn't really start reading Black Library books until like last year.
When Black Legion came out?
Yeah, I literally started with Black Legion, and I was like, holy shit, this is great. I got to read more of
That's a really good one to start on.
Bowden's books. Yeah, I loved it. And I started like I started with doing all of the audiobooks for the Chaos stuff because I would listen to them while I was painting in between Badcasts. Obviously, I listened to all of the Badcasts over and over until,
of course,
until I can't listen to them anymore.
You do.
Yeah, absolutely. To not do that would be insane.
Just keep going through the Black Library books and enjoy Soul Drinkers, fucko.
No.
Oh, God. Is that Gav Thorpe's like homebrew chapter or whatever?
No, that's Ben Counter's homebrew chapter.
Okay.
With the edgelord librarian who becomes a Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, God. But yes, I read like the Eisenhorn books last year too, and that was cool. I think more of it was really a lot of like traditional RPGs, like pencil and paper RPGs, and playing a lot of RPGs on PlayStation, Super Nintendo, and also probably some anime. Just to make sure that we have that mentioned directly on this Badcast
here, really.
Yeah. Absolutely. My number one
SMDH over here.
Yeah. In fact, I think you'll see when you play in the Astratus campaign that my number one source of inspiration was Dragon Ball Z.
I'm really looking forward to the tournament arc of the Astratus campaign.
Yeah, in fact, that'll be in the second round, the fifth round, the seventh round, and then every round after that, we'll be doing a tournament of power.
Well, rounds
for the campaign.
3 through 8 are just powering up.
Right, just yelling, in fact.
That's how I play most of my games anyway.
You know what gives me happiness and succor at this moment is I don't know what the fuck you guys are talking about because I've never watched Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, that's so sad.
Is it though?
Well, yeah, because like everybody in high school, that even the kids who were pretending to not watch Dragon Ball Z still watched Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah,
they just lied about it.
I didn't have cable growing up, so I had no access to anime.
The New England Patriots watched Dragon Ball Z. And the room goes quiet. All right.
No, I saw your tweet about that, and then I went and looked at it. I was like, yeah, sure. They have an offensive line. Why wouldn't they watch Dragon Ball Z? It's always the O line.
Oh,
it's like you find out the Packers offensive line played a bunch of Settlers of Catan, partially because they live in Wisconsin and there's nothing else to do.
It's true. It sucks there. It's also completely frozen at time of recording. Well, okay, so the question before, like what products or whatever influenced this, I thought that you may have something mentioned, like a campaign book or something, because you made a campaign book for the Astratus campaign, and it is like off the wall awesome.
It's professional looking. Like it's legit gorgeous.
Oh, thanks.
And so I wanted to ask, like how did it come together in your head? And like honestly, like how did you do it? What skills do you have that got you to make something so professional looking?
Yeah, so desktop publishing and graphic design are kind of a hobby of mine. And I really love printed materials. I've always kind of really enjoyed the feel of having printed materials. That's really where I'm like a huge sucker. Like I buy all the campaign stuff that Games Workshop does, mostly because I like having the different books and the missions and content in front of me. So a lot of it was, I knew that I wanted to do a couple of things with the new campaign, and one of them was make a book for the rules of the campaign, because I already had like 7 or 8 pages of rules that I knew I was going to need. And this kind of gets to one of the other things that I think that you were going to ask about, which was what was I trying to do with this campaign? And I knew that coming into it, there were a couple of things I wanted to do. One of them was I wanted to do cards, or have a card-based system, partly because I found out like that I could get cards professionally printed, and that was probably the motivating force behind it. And the other thing was, Peter had mentioned that we brainstormed a little bit after the last campaign about what we were going to do for this one. And, he brought up using cards similar to the Necromunda ones that they have. And, he brought up doing like some slow grow stuff because he really likes playing smaller games. And I thought that was easy enough to do. And then I started thinking about, okay, well, what would that look like on a larger campaign? And as long as I was doing cards, I knew I was going to need to do some rules behind how they worked, which meant I was going to need some kind of rule book. So I started putting together in my head, like, okay, what would the rule book look like and how would I curate stuff for it? And that was actually one of the most fun parts, was just going through and getting art from different sources for the rule book and the cards that we're going to be using for the campaign.
Yeah. So what were you taking for those?
Most of the stuff is like repurposed from Conquest, the card game.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That Fantasy Flight Games made.
Yeah, a lot of it I didn't really recognize, and I'm like, he didn't draw all this for this. I guarantee you this because you have a job too. It's a lot of stuff I hadn't seen before, and that kind of was refreshing to me.
Yeah, it's really cool stuff. They have a lot of fantastic art for it that I feel like just doesn't get seen because the game's defunct.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the cooler things in here, too, is that also you have some pictures of the models of the players because everyone submitted a picture of their warlord.
Yeah, one of the other things about the campaign was I really wanted to have an excuse to use all of the bonkers rules that have been released over the last couple of years that no one ever plays. Because like even in my casual group, like I know a lot of people that play casually all their games. And while we don't, they're not competitive players, we use points values for everything, partly because power levels are kind of weak sauce garbage now.
They suck.
Yeah,
they're
too
completely
out of whack.
They're too unbalancing for fun games in my experience.
Yeah, I really wanted to make it work, but it just doesn't work on the whole. So, but like, even then, like we play match play rules and points values in our casual games, but I know that a lot of people who do that and still play casually still don't play like the narrative missions. They don't try some of like the out there stuff or ever get a chance to play with like the make your own vehicle rules or the make your own War Master rules. So I really wanted a chance to use all of that. So like you saw when you go through the rule book, you can see that like we're using all of the beta rules, all the narrative missions, all of the create your own War Master stuff, all of the create your own buggy and Land Raider stuff. Although no one is going to make a custom Land Raider at all in this campaign.
You don't know that. Greg might.
Yeah, that's true. Greg might actually make a custom Land Raider. But I'm not worried about that because he could have made it.
Other Greg might make a custom looted vehicle.
Oh, that's fair. That would be cool. But yeah, so I wanted to do that, and as part of that, I remember Campbell when you were doing the thread and Something Awful, we did the bit where we had everybody submit photos for their army. So instead of having art for the armies, we're like, well, we'll just have everybody submit all of their models, and we'll use those for the photos setting up the game. And I thought that was really cool. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to have all these custom War Masters now because we're using, backstory on the campaign, we're doing custom War Masters for every army. So every campaign army has like their one warlord, and that's a special character made by the players that uses the custom character rules. And so what I thought it would be cool to do was have, if every character that everyone made had their own like codex entry, and a data sheet, what would that look like? And so something really cool to add on to that would be to have everybody go through and do photos of their War Masters. And so I thought it would be cool to do that same way and then go through and have those. So you have a whole book of like, here's everybody's special Snowflake Mary Sue insert and their custom fan fiction and photo.
Well, that's what my next thing was going to be about them is like there is a bunch of custom lore for each one of those characters. That's usually like about half a page. Did you send them a brief or did you write them yourself based on what they'd already said? Or did you reinterpret their factor fan fiction entry essentially for these things?
So we have 28 War Masters. I wrote lore for maybe 5 of them.
Okay.
And everyone else wrote their own. So I wrote mine and then I had about 4 where people gave me notes and I went through and wrote it and then they usually like take a look at it and give me notes. But for the most part, yeah, people were very willing to go ahead and write up their whole fan fiction story. And some of them were really cool. Most of them were okay. And a couple of them are just bonkers off the rails nonsense. And it's amazing. Like there's one of them where it's an orc with Space Marine DNA, which is probably the most out there one. It's a tie between that one and the Dark Eldar warlord, who's also a White Lantern from the Green Lantern comic book series.
Yeah, I remember when you were like, "What is happening over here?"
That was the first one like that I got, and I sent Dan a PM that was like, "What did you do?"
You have set the tone for this.
It's someone from his game group, and they were like, "Here's my warlord," and I'm like, "Oh God."
Yeah, so it's interesting to me that we have 2 geographical groups of players for this campaign. One in the New York City area, which is your home base, and then one in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area, which is where I am. And it is kind of funny to look at the Warlord or War Master entries for the 2 different areas. The New York players are significantly more irreverent than the Mid-Atlantic players I've found, at least in reading some of this backstory.
Yeah, I think there's some funnier stuff in there. Nurgle Danzig is my favorite, where it's my friend Brandon wrote up a backstory where his warlord is Danzig, if he were a Nurgle demon. And that one's my favorite just because every time I write stuff about him and do like his turn orders or whatever, the missions he's got to play, I just get to go through and think of Danzig and Misfit song titles to put into the content.
He put a bunch of those in his description of his War Master 2, which I thought was a lot of fun when I was reading through it. I mentioned that we're doing this campaign in 2 different areas, and that seems like it's going to be a little more difficult than doing a campaign just with your friends. Are you worried about any of the challenges that are going to come up from that?
Oh, yeah. I think it's going to be a huge pain in the ass, and I'm probably going to mess it up a bunch. Yeah, I did the first campaign with my friends in the Maryland area, primarily Greg, Phil, and John, who you'll meet at some point, and you've already met them over at Greg's place.
I think I have, yeah.
Yeah, and so I wanted to include them because when we did the Apocalypse game last October, Greg came up and brought his shitty unpainted Warhound that looks like a trash can dumpster fire.
It'll never get painted.
No, not at all. And
he's never going to do it.
Even if
Greg,
it does,
I know you're listening. You're never going to paint it. You're always going to be the shame of anyone.
Yeah, and your shirt looked like a dish rag.
Let's say your ham looked like a dish rag, yeah.
Corn cob pipe looking Warhound.
This corny ass motherfucker comes in with an unpainted Warhound. Get out of here.
Just shameful. No, he came up and we played the Apocalypse game, and that was a lot of fun. And it got me thinking that there wasn't any reason that we couldn't include more people from outside the campaign who had an interest or expand a little bit. And because I already knew a ton of people in the DC, Maryland area, I thought, well, let's at least expand that way because there's enough overlap between like Peter and Dan and Greg and some of the New York folks that we could at least run things simultaneously and then have some crossover where occasionally people could meet up and play, which will be, I think, really fun when we start having like the allies and the relics pop up, and those are like winnable. Yeah,
I'm really, really excited for when we get down to the nitty gritty of the campaign and you start getting these cards out and everybody flips their shit over there, over those. But I wanted to give you an opportunity to give us your backstory of the Astratus system and maybe tell us why there are so many War Masters interested in taking over said system.
Read us your collaborative fan fiction.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I want to tell you that I have this really great stuff planned. I mean, so I did have the co-writer for Fast Times at Terrah High do some proofreading and write it for me. Write the blurb for me. But really, I needed a reason for it. It's all mechanically driven. I needed a reason for a bunch of warlords to be on the same planet. So the idea is that back during the Horus Heresy, fat idiot Lorgar went out and started the Ruin Storm. Yeah. Got real sauced and pissed about the Emperor and hated on his big brother for dunking on him. So he went out and he started the Ruin Storm. And then that caused a bunch of shit and warp storms. And then a couple of planets got lost and were like caught up in warp storms that never really went away. And cut to modern day when Abaddon shithouses Cadia and causes the Cicatrix Maledictum to like overtake the whole galaxy. That causes some of these planets near the Maelstrom that had been lost for a long time to like suddenly reemerge into real space. Like the warp recedes a little bit and goes into other spots. And so you got these planets that have like lots of old technology that were battlegrounds in the Horus Heresy that are now available. They're a little bit hard to get to, in order to make sure that we can justify the slow grow part of the campaign. But yeah, so everyone's trying to get to those in order to see what they can steal from them and fight over them. And I mean, it's also Warhammer 40K, so you don't really need a reason for people to be trying to murder each other. But, going after lost technology is a pretty good one.
So I know you mentioned some custom relics, and I seem to recall you actually have been converting some models for this too, not just for your own army, but kind of for everybody to use.
Oh yeah, I'm really excited about those. Those are like door prizes. So, the campaign, we have a bunch of, the card system also has some models that go with it. So we have allies and relics, right? Where during the campaign, you can run into and fight over, different allies and relics that you might run into. And like, so the relics are stuff like, they might be stuff like, oh, we have a Staff of Light is one of the relics, or like, there's a Pseudo Terminator armor is one of the relics. And one of them is one of them's like an evil book that lets you basically nullify psychic powers, right? So we have these relics, and we have a bunch of allies, and the allies are like Primaris Psychers and Trazen and the dog from Rogue Trader, which I think is probably going to be the most fought after thing in the entire campaign. And
the battle for good doggo. Yep. Yeah,
I'll fight people in real life for that one.
Yeah, I sent a bunch of stuff down to Kevin, who's gonna like distribute it after games, and he was like, "Wait, you made a card for the dog?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "All right, send the dog out, and I'm going to immediately quit the campaign." But yeah, the idea is like as you play, you can run into these and add them to your army, so you can be running like an Imperial army running around with Trazen, who's just kind of like, and that's kind of reflect the story aspects where it's like, oh, okay, well, Trazen's helping us out because we promised him something valuable later. And then if you have that model when the campaign ends, you get to keep it.
Ooh,
nice.
Dang. I like Trazen a lot. He's sort of like the Warhammer 40,000's version of the Riddler.
Somewhere between he's the guy who he collects stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's somewhere between the Riddler and Ash Ketchum, yeah. But he's 1 million years old.
You ruined it. You ruined it for me.
That's what I'm here for.
Oh God. Okay, well let's move on to a little lighter fare, Rob, and we're gonna hit you with a couple of lightning round questions, and then we're gonna get to what we're all here for: fuck, marry, kill Primarchs. But first, your favorite Chaos Legion?
Oh, Night Lords.
It's really.
Well, they were my first Chaos Legion, but also they're the best Chaos Legion. So.
How are they the best Chaos Legion?
Well, they have the coolest paint scheme, for one, because lightning bolts are just cool.
I can't argue that, yeah.
Yeah.
Second,
Soar winged skulls, yeah.
Right. Second, the concept for their Primarch is literally Batman crossed with Heart of Darkness.
Very overtly.
Yeah.
I never liked Kurz. I thought he was like the Linkin Park of Primarchs.
How dare you? He is at worst, the Trent Reznor of Primarch.
Ooh, all right. See, now I like him even more.
Plus part of it is that in my mind now, what Animal wrote or what Greg wrote in the notes for Fast Times at Terrah High has become canon, which is that his whole deal is huffing things. And that he one time put a dead bird in a paper bag and huffed it and then claimed it let him see the future.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the beauty of 40K fiction is that it's not all true, but all of it is canon.
Exactly.
So what was your first model?
That stupid metal Juggernaut, Berserker on Juggernaut for 40K. I had that thing before I had an actual 40K army or the box set.
Follow up to that question. Did you ever throw that model at anyone?
No, I never threw it at anyone, but there were times when I wanted to, especially when I was playing second edition games against Eldar.
One time my brother threw a metal box dreadnought at me and he missed Jesus. And he put a hole in the wall and my dad got real mad.
See, all my friends who got like way too mad about stuff just took it out in their models and not on the players. So like I knew a guy who crushed Karn the Betrayer into the carpet he was standing on, never to be seen again.
Rob, mutilators or obliterators?
Which ugly child are you choosing?
I mean, I guess I'll take obliterators because they still are useful and I would play with them. And mutilators, I would quit 40K before I put those things in my army. These things aren't even like they're not even like a good concept. Like, hey, let's make shittier, slower Terminators. They're close combat units that can't even run.
They can run now?
No, they look like they're having a hard time standing.
Are you
for? They look like they're having a hard time doing a lot of things.
Are you for or against Helldrake buttholes?
Oh, absolutely for. In fact, I've modeled my Helldrakes to have more prominent buttholes.
Did you also green stuff a ring onto the Helldrake's hand?
I've done that I've considered that a few times. Really, what I've been more meticulously doing is using green stuff to model perfect little. I don't know if chocolate starfish is the right word.
Oh my god!
Maybe, like Helldrake dirt stars. We'll go with that.
The Dirt Star of Chaos.
5-pointed chaos star.
The fivefold path.
Okay, well, let's get into the good shit here. We're gonna play a quick round of Fuck, Marry, Kill, Primarch's edition. So I assume that you've thought of this many times, Rob, and you have your answers ready.
Definitely, the fuck Primarch is the second Legion. Wait, which ones are the ones that don't have that where they disappeared? No one knows which ones they are.
It's the second, the 18th,
Yeah,
I think.
the second Legion Primarch, who's actually the Lady Primarch, but she looks just like Makoto from Ghost in the Shell.
I thought the second Legion Primarch was Goku. I guess that's the 18th
No, that's
Legion.
18th Legion. Primarch is Goku. Yeah, so definitely that's the fuck Primarch. The Mary Primarch is clearly 18th Legion Goku. But Super Saiyan blue form.
Of course.
Yeah.
Why settle for less?
You guys are making this not fun for me. I just want you to know this.
Let me have this.
And then the kill Primarch is obviously Lorgar, which is the only choice there was ever going to be here.
I'm glad we can all agree on that one.
Well, on that note, on the correctest note possible, Rob, thank you so much for joining us tonight on the 40K Badcast. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Well, thanks for having me.
Well, Campbell, wasn't that a fantastic interview with Rob? We learned so much.
Those are the best 30 to 90 minutes I've ever recorded on this podcast.
Oh, God. I hope it's not 90 minutes. Oh, fuck.
Enjoy your 4-hour Badcast, fuckos.
Oh, wow. Okay. Let's move on to our marquee segment, Fact or Fan Fiction, where Campbell tries to fool me with some dumb bullshit that he found on the internet. Campbell, why don't you set the stage?
We've talked a lot about describing war zones and various places, and I think this gives you a wonderful sense of place for this and also a sense of time, much like Know No Fear. And actually, curiously enough, was written before Know No Fear, so I think Dan Abnett might have been cribbing from this guy.
Oh, buddy, I'm excited now.
Late in the 41st millennium, a large chaos horde of the Terrah Brigadiers, a renegade group of Imperial Guard and Chaos Space Marines, attacked the world of Lorak. Commander Logan Clyde of the 667th Cairo Special Forces, or Green Berets for the ancient military faction on Terrah, swiftly launched a massive evacuation using the landing platforms of the capital hive city of Carax. Though many initially doubted his skill, as it was his first mission where he would be in complete control, they soon saw his eye for planning in war. However, before the last parts of Lorak could be evacuated, the horde advanced faster than expected. Acting quickly, Logan Clyde defended Platform 13 for almost 17 hours against all odds. Platform 13 is the size of 4.5 thrash ball fields. This is the record of that mighty battle. Although almost all of the veterans from the unit known as the Wolf Pack were lost, many recruits survived to receive promotions and were even given command of their own squads. 9:53 local time. Carrick Landing Fields, Platform 13 Overseer's Office. Time till attack, wrong till, estimated 31 hours. Get those Arvis lighters to land in the southern quarter next to the basilisks, and have the convict squad set their charges on the Carax General Bridge in these areas. I want to have our bombers to take away those secondary bridges, so have the column of evacs move quicker, said Logan Clyde, exuding his strange mix of clam and paranoia.
Oh, he smells like clams.
Commander, if we move our mortar squads here and on these roofs, their fields of fire will be bigger, suggested Old Man Stackrus, the chief artillery officer. Do whatever you need, and make sure those factories are still producing for at least 10 more hours, and make sure they got their just rewards. Have the catwalks and kill boxes fortified, and begin placing traps here and here. Carac General Bridge, 10:21, local time. Sergeant Rocky Starkiller was unhappy, even more so than usual.
Rocky Starkiller.
Rocky Starkiller.
I'm imagining if Star Wars had Sylvester Stallone instead of Mark Hamill in it.
I'm just picturing Sylvester Stallone in like Well, actually, he would be wearing dumb boots with lifts because he's like 5'4". But anyway, Sergeant Rocky Starkiller was unhappy, even more so than usual. He had been given the Gack House assignment of overseeing the convict squads. God. He did admire their enthusiasm. He had seen a 70-year-old go to town on one of the support struts with only a crowbar and had actually broken it. Those that had bombs were setting them up at far end, and those that weren't were currently dropping poisons and toxins into the river, as well as placing traps to cause all the pain possible. He could use some of these people when he killed the commander. Hey, Gimpy! Yeah, you! Siphon that fuel from the car! Pop the antifreeze and any other flammable liquids! They followed orders, and he didn't have to repeat himself. Very useful... ... Very useful indeed. ...
Okay, this is great. Yeah. I'm imagining that there's like a whole lot more of this.
Oh, yes, there is.
Okay, well,
there's like, yeah.
Let's stop it before it gets too terrible. This is okay, and this is judging mostly by the misspellings and grammar, but it's got to be fan fiction. At least Black Library has editors.
Yes, this is very true. This is fan fiction. This is The Defense of Platform 13 by Golden Eyed Scout. And there's about 5 more chapters of this, including let's see, where's my favorite line in here? Sniff, sniff, it smelt like food, but the dog would not eat it. It smelled of him.
He smells like clams. So who do you think was the self-insert character?
Oh, I think Logan Clyde of the 667th Cairo Special Forces of the Green Berets. All right, first of all, this guy's name surprisingly is not Clyde. The writer's name is like Dave. Having the unit named like the Green Berets, named after the Earth's ancient special forces thing, is very much like that children military warship shit that should end with G.I. Joe.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good one, man. Smells of clams and paranoia.
Yep.
All right, well, we're getting to the end of the show here, so let's plug some shit. One of the best ways to get at us for, I don't know, fan fiction conversations, and, I put out a plea to come talk to me about sort of shitty behavior that people who don't like a particular model or whatever come up with. Do it via email. Contact at 40kbadcast.com. Best way to talk to us. We need questions for We Make the Call. We had a good one today, but we need more. So get out there if you have a question. And it doesn't have to be a good question. It can be a bad, dumb question. If we think that something good can come from it or it will be funny, then we'll go for it. So please send us that. Another way to talk to us is via Twitter. I am at DB_sleazy. He is at Brother SRM, and we love ourselves from Twitter.
Right, what have you been tweeting about?
I recently called Howard Schultz a fucking vampire.
That fucking rules. Yeah, man.
Fuck that guy.
God. Yeah, I've been understanding about how I don't understand how apps work. What is TikTok? I still don't know.
It's like the new Vine, right?
I guess. Oh, okay. What is Vine?
Okay, well, let's not get into that right now. We can all together look at Campbell's models on Tumblr, Cam2D on Tumblr.
Right.
Tumblr. There we go. Sorry, I have it written as Tumbles here on my notes, which
Cam2D.tumbles.tumblr at Tumblr at Tumblebumble. Come check out
the Tumble Bumble.
Come jump into the Tumble Bumble party bundle.
You can also support the show at varying levels of interest and coolness at Patreon, where we have 3 tiers: the $1 tier for the 40K Friendo, the $5 tier for the Badcast Bad Boy, and the Cool Guy tier, the $6.90 tier for the 40K Fuck Boy.
Right, and that's at patreon.com/40K Badcast, where we are like 2 people away from having 100 patrons, which is super cool.
Oh, yeah, that would be really great. So get on it, y'all. And then finally, Campbell, you can buy the perfect shirt, but you can also buy the best shirt ever on our Spreadshirt shop, which is at
shop.spreadshirt.com/40kbadcast.
That's right. The Edging Enthusiast shirt has been here for at least 2 weeks now. I've got mine. I have worn it to work. People gave me weird looks, and I just shrugged. I said, I'm not going to bother explaining this right now, man. I'm just going to go on back to my desk and eat my salad, and it's going to be delicious.
Because you, like Matthew McConaughey, are living on the edge.
Yes, the Edging Enthusiast shirt, the Perfect shirt, the 420K Badcast shirt, and our regular 40K Badcast shirts are all for sale there. Why don't you go buy them?
Why wouldn't you? I can't think of any potential reason why you wouldn't buy them, especially the Perfect shirt. It's too good.
All right, well, we're about to get out of here and become the Endless Lovers. Campbell, because for whatever reason, I heard Endless Love on the radio this morning. And I thought to myself, man, this is a good song.
I was going to go with Bad Boys 2 Men.
Ooh, Bad Boys 2 Men. That's even better. Yeah. All right, well, let's use that one. Bad Boys. We're going to become the Bad Boys 2 Men and get the fuck out of here. But first, Campbell, why don't you give me a little quote to send us off right?
All right, this one's short and this one's sweet. Compromise is akin to treachery.
Short and sweet, just like my man Crumbles. We're the 40K Badcast. We're bad at 40K. You can too, and we will see you in the next one.